So before we kick this thing off, before we start the episode today, I'm going to throw out the usual reminder. Email us at podcast, singular, not plural, podcast at nationalland.com. Email us, let us know your questions that you want answered, guests that you want us to talk to, or subjects that you would like us to cover. Email us. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you. And let's get on with the show. Hello, listeners, and welcome to episode 107 for the National Land Realty Podcast, where we discuss all things land. Our goal here is to inform, educate, and entertain those of you who own land or are interested in the buying and selling of land throughout the United States. My name is Mac Christian, and I'm the Chief Marketing Officer here at National Land Realty. I'll be your host for this episode. Now, artificial intelligence has ruled the headlines over the last year, 2 years. Opinions on artificial intelligence have ranged from apocalyptic to shiny thing that's kind of useless. Today, we're discussing the intersection of artificial intelligence and real estate with Washington-based land real estate agent Ernest Peralta. Now, using AI to help evaluate properties, assessing overhead costs, streamlining processes, and what the future holds are all discussed here. The buying and selling of land is a complex process, and AI is one tool that gives a significant advantage to the users. Now sit back and enjoy. All right. We are live, and I am sitting here with Ernest Peralta. Ernest is an agent out of Washington and has a good background in technology, and I'm going to let him tell that story. But today we're talking about AI and the use of AI and the intersection of AI and real estate. And Ernest, I wondered if you could just take the reins here, tell us about your backgrounds and sort of, the topic at hand, and how you got into real estate in the first place.
Great. Yeah, thanks, Mac. Happy to be here and looking forward to going through this discussion with technology and AI. Well, a little bit of background about myself. I started about 18 years ago, actually, within real estate. It was sort of in conjunction between doing that and also doing a corporate consulting work as well. I live out here in Bellevue, Washington, which is a very technology-centric area. And I've been doing corporate consulting for some time. And so I've continued to go that route. But at the same time, I've always had an interest in real estate. Take it a little bit back further, my folks actually had been investors in real estate in the past. And so I've always had an inclination to continue at least some form or fashion within real estate. I got my broker's license back in 2005. I was doing both a little bit of residential and a little bit of development at the same time. And so that kind of got my feet wet, and I mostly stayed within the residential space. Eventually, over time, if you fast forward, several years later, I started looking and getting into commercial real estate. And with that, I had started to go between corporate work and a little bit of real estate. The economy kind of changed a little bit back in 2008, 2009. So I had to kind of pivot back into corporate, but I've always, had a knack that one day I'll head back into real estate. And so right before the pandemic, I started looking at other asset classes. I started getting into commercial real estate, and that really got my wheels turning, if you will, just in terms of getting back into real estate in that space. So pre-COVID, when I got back into the commercial side of things, and because of my technology background, I really dabbled into how to make things more efficient. So this is where the crossroads between AI or technology and real estate kind of mends itself in for my background. So early part of AI, artificial intelligence or augmented reality, I started seeing a little bit of that within the space here in Washington State. So I gravitated towards new technology and trying to incorporate how I can make things more efficient in terms of streamlining property assessments, customer interactions. I realized that there were some tasks that are repetitive and that could be improved upon with automation. So within the last couple of years, I really dived into the artificial intelligence or generation AI and wanted to understand how to actually create these foundation models for creating data sets so that I can learn and understand how I could utilize that within real estate. And so some of the things that I've been able to play around with within AI and real estate are things like property valuation algorithms, and is also powered marketing platforms as well. So what this basically entails is just taking data sets and understanding how to evaluate property. So if you were to look at properties within the multiple listing services, the MLS, and take a congregation of some of those data sets, put it into a foundation model that either I created or some other companies that created, put that data set into the foundation model, you can actually cut and slice the data the way that you would like to see it. And that could actually give you a nice valuation of properties, of things that you're trying to look at. And then also on the marketing platform side, some of the things that I've started to experiment and look into are things like chatbots, so AI chatbots, and then also some of the marketing things that I would like to utilize into my business as well. So in a nutshell, that's how I got into real estate, and that's also how I incorporated both technology and real estate up to where I am today.
So tell me a little bit about sort of your stance on AI, since we're on the topic now. We're on the right path. So with AI, and I mean, it's influenced every part of every profession across the world right now. But there's this, when it first came out, there was this consensus that it's taken everybody's jobs. And the first reaction that everybody has is hyperbole. Like, that's always the first. And when something new hits the market, hyperbole goes crazy. But as things settle in, how are you viewing AI currently? Is it a game changer, or is it a shiny thing? Is it one of those things that has use, or is it in between? How do you see it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a great question, because you see and hear that a lot. From my perspective, I think it's a tool set that we should look to and leverage, just in terms of having something that we could look into and also use as a tool to what we need to do as agents. I always say, and also others here in this arena as well, and from what I've gathered so far, is that this AI tool is not something that's going to eliminate our jobs. If anything, it'll enhance our jobs. And I see that in respect to being able to streamline a lot of the processes. It allows you to also accurately take property valuations, put it in a data set, and to be able to have not only the current property valuation, but if you understand AI, it can actually leverage looking at the future state of how property valuations will look like. So not only a current snapshot of how we used to take the historical data sets of the MLS and then come up with a holistic, okay, this is what the current market value is for the property. And then you'd have to estimate and put your calculations together to determine what the future value is. AI can actually do that in a much more efficient way than we can. It'll take statistical data, forecast it based off of what the economic outlook looks like, and it can actually project 3 years, 5 years down the road, depending on how you would like the calculations to be worked out. So I think in respect to AI and how it's going to impact us, I really think that it's going to help us as agents, or just those that are in real estate, enhance our jobs a lot better. One, it can predict and also get more accurate data. The other thing too is that it could enhance the ability for us to be more human-centric, meaning that we'll utilize AI to formulate and calculate the data that we need, but it gives us more time to actually continue that human approach that we need to as agents to work with our clients, if you will. So in a nutshell, I think more or less it'll complement what we're currently doing, but in a much more efficient way.
Yeah, and it's a really good point that you make on the valuation side of things. That's something I hadn't given that much consideration really until you started going into it, because most of what I've looked at are things, what we work with, right? We work with advertising management, budget management. We work with ad placement. Where I've considered AI the most is in contract building, right? Like, you can actually, where the contract process in real estate, whether it be the mortgage or it be the agreement between the real estate professional and the client, or any of those kind of things, like generating those contracts and getting them negotiated, becomes a dynamic process where like you could, AI tools can enable like, okay, this is your specific situation. This is your financials. This is how it relates to the mortgage. And it can build you your sheet and have it ready to go to where there is probably a threat there for underwriters a little bit and some of the lenders out there to create those documents. Like that's where I've considered a lot of it. But the property valuation side that you just brought up is really unique because one of the things that makes valuation, what commercial and land, houses a little less, but with land-based real estate, the thing that makes it hard to evaluate that is you can have a piece of land, and let's say half of it is set for commercial development, and half of it is wetlands, or half of it is a wheat field, or half of it is whatever you want to name it. It's timber. Doesn't matter. But you're zoning one half of a property and then another half, or like you take a more dynamic property where you have field and you have recreation and you have timber all on the same piece of land with, let's throw in a wetland to make things really nasty. And if you're able to segment those pieces of the land and use, in the past it was you'd have to pull data sets of each one of those land types, pull in the acreage, calculate those together, and then mess with the whole thing, hope you got it right. And if you introduce a system like an AI system, now you've got a dynamic input thing that can like help you really evaluate what land is doing, and then you could put it on a trend line. You could even do a comparative, right? Like let's look at how land compares to what's the GDP of that specific, or you could go into like what's the economic data of that certain area, at a given time, and how does that relate to land values. Like you could really pull a comparative out there, and an AI system could come in and do that calculation that would probably take you like 6 months. It would speed up the whole process. Like that's a whole thing I hadn't thought about. I really, really like that perspective. You mentioned you've started using it. What is it like? There's a lot of AI systems out there. How do you shop and how do you find them and how do you use them?
Yeah, that's a very good question because there's just a plethora of different type of tool sets that are out there. For me, I'm a sleuth and I love to research. So one thing that I do is I always stay in touch with the AI community. And that's one thing that I would suggest for those that are listening to this podcast is to try to stay ahead or understand the trends of AI. It's not going to go away anytime soon. If anything, if you can just get a better understanding of AI, I think it'll put you in a much better place so that you can be able to maybe incorporate some things within AI into your tool set, if you will. It'll only make you better. I think that if you don't, you're kind of doing yourself a disservice. And one thing in terms of the different types of tools that I look at, one thing that I want to do, and as I mentioned earlier, the tool set that I used for analyzing property is a tool called House Canary. That's one that you can actually download and look at. You can do it per report. So you can go, if you have a property that you want to evaluate, you can go ahead and download House Canary, and you can generate one report if you wanted to do that for a project, or you could do it as an enterprise. So you could do it on a much larger scale so that you can have multiple reports that you want to do. And that is not something that you can just download and just continue to do. So you actually have to give them a call and set that up on an enterprise level. However, you've got a couple of choices there. In terms of how I go about looking at these different tool sets, I would just do Google search and just look at what it is that I'm trying to look at. So if I wanted to look at analyzing properties, I would just look at or type into your Google search AI tools for analyzing property. And you'd have at least a few combinations of selections that you can choose from there. And I would definitely go and look through those and then find the ones that have the best reviews. Just go ahead and do a Google search and find out what the reviews are for each of those. That was my way of actually pinpointing the ones that I wanted to utilize as well.
I was going to say, so I've done a lot of software integrations especially since I've started here. And there's the one site, and I want to throw it out there in case anybody else is wondering on software searches. G2.com has been my actual savior in grabbing pieces of software and putting them side by side. And one, getting your cost analysis, but two, getting, what they actually do in there, as well as getting reviews. That thing has been a lifesaver. So as we started talking, I wanted to kind of jump into. I realized we started the conversation and we're saying AI and we're jumping in and talking about what it does. And I'm positive there's plenty of people that are listening to this that know what AI is and know what AI does and can talk about AI. But as far as what AI is, I think that's always good to lay out there. And so for those of you listening, when we're talking to AI, we're talking about it's a spreadsheet, right? It's a data sheet. It's like we're talking about an Excel sheet. It's a list of data that is in rows and columns that takes in certain identifiers, like this column is for housing, we'll say square footage or whatever it is. And there's all these data sheets, and then you have an Excel sheet. Now multiply that by a few hundred. You've got hundreds of Excel sheets. And the AI system is a language that you construct that grabs that data, identifies it, and does the cognitive sort of exercises that a person would do. Like a person would say, oh, hey, check this out. Blue houses sell faster than red houses. And instead of you or I looking at this Excel sheet and looking at all the numbers for hours and days on end and figuring that out, an AI system can run all those numbers extremely, like, blazingly fast, get the answer, and then extrapolate that. Mm-hmm. It's used for large data sets and using comparisons. So at the end of this, like, we're talking about spreadsheets, and it's a language that enables spreadsheets to be a more dynamic tool. And I always think that that's really important to talk about, because I think, I don't want to throw shade at my mom, but when I talk to my mom about it, it's like when she's talking about it, it's like robotics, right? Like there's some kind of robotic machine moving things around. Like she's going to throw something at me for this. I'm using a bad analogy. I should have used like somebody down the street or something. But it's along those lines. It's sort of a mysterious thing, and when it comes down to it, it's just an Excel sheet, and then you put a language behind it that can pull that data, get together, and make comparisons and get something out of it. And they do the same thing with language. Like your Chat GPT is when that system sees the word "the," it knows usually the words that follow "the," and then you give it context, and it can build you out a sentence. And it takes all of these pages and makes comparisons as to what they're doing. So I wanted to make sure to kind of lay it out there really quick. So House Canary, you've used that. What other systems are you using? Are you using any kind of automation systems or tools to make your job easier?
Yes, I've been playing around with a few. As I mentioned, I tried to create a couple of foundation models. And when I say foundation models, it's basically my own version of AI, so artificial intelligence. A very common one out there that people are using right now is ChatGPT. So, I use that because a lot of people have heard of it recently as well. So I created my little own version of ChatGPTs, and creating a smaller subset of that, I call it like a test bed. And that is called a foundation model. Foundation model based off of that are data sets, data or research information that I've plugged into my foundation model and am able to give it prompt engineering. Prompt engineering is basically just giving it a prompt of what I would like it to do in terms of find me a house over in Lake Sammamish, or find me a property over in Lake Sammamish that is about 4 acres and 1,900 square feet is what I would like to build a potential structure on. If you can give me the valuation of this property for the next 3 to 5 years, when it's resurrected, what are the operating costs and all the associated costs to it? What is the projected outcome or price point that I could expect from it? And within seconds, based off of that prompt engineering that I gave it, it could give me basically the operating cost, the construction cost, and its future valuation of that property with a structure resurrected on it. Mind you, there's one caveat that I do want to mention. Within using artificial intelligence, you always want to validate your information. ChatGPT is great in a sense that it can give you data that is unbelievably fast and pretty accurate for the most part, but you always want to validate that with other sources too as well. Because ChatGPT or AI can also give false information. as well. So you want to make sure that the information that you get, you also want to validate that it is somewhat within the ballpark of what you think you expect it to be. So hopefully that answers some of your questions.
Yeah, no, that's a super important point to make. I think that there tends to be a thought out there like, okay, I just put in my question to ChatGPT, I'll get my answer. And it's like when you lay out what ChatGPT is, then you can go, oh, I better double check that, because ChatGPT, it's just taking, they have a subset of websites that they reference, right? Like the part of their data set, or part of their data set is going to be existing websites. So all ChatGPT is doing is using existing websites as its reference model. So you probably have Wikipedia on there. You might have an Encyclopedia Britannica on there, probably Nat Geo, just things like that. And then some more contemporary websites where it's going out there and looking at the language that it can find in those websites, and it looks at basically all the pages very quickly because it's much faster than we are. And then it pulls data in. So it might be data related to your question, but if it was false data put out, like let's say one of its reference sites is TMZ, right, where it's like pop culture and it's just throwing numbers out there in headlines, it might be grabbing data from there and it could be wrong. And it's pulling it together the best it can and putting that in front of you, and it looks great. Like you said, it for the most part, it tends to hit the mark, but you always got to double check that thing, because you don't want to have GPT build your model and then you go out and you're wrong. Have you compared it to other language AIs like Gemini or anything like that?
I have. I've compared it to not only, for instance, ChatGPT and the foundation models that I've created, but I'll look at other AI models to compare. And then I'll also do my own research too, just in terms of some Google searches, and just make sure. I always take at least 2 to 3 other references just to double confirm that my information is pretty much accurate. It won't be totally accurate, but at least pretty darn close to.
Yeah. So, you talked briefly there about looking at properties, and you've sort of built your own model there and extrapolating operating costs and everything. That probably plays a pretty heavy role in calculating ROI and possible investments with real estate, right? Like how do you see this being used sort of moving forward?
Absolutely. I see this being used in terms of future state. I mean, if folks that are listening come from a commercial background and you want to create an offering memorandum, if you will. Offering memorandum is just taking a snapshot of a 5-year projection of a property or asset that you're looking to eventually, hopefully, make a profit on. There's a lot of manual labor that is involved in that. You got to look at operating costs. You got to look at what are the current properties around the area in terms of the monthly rent, that's happening, and the price per unit. That takes a lot of effort and time. Utilizing AI to create an offering memorandum is going to be a lifesaver. One, it's going to take existing data that will be masked throughout the whole internet. So it'll be looking at different data sets everywhere to gather the information that you need, especially for a certain area or segment of the population or a certain county, if you will. And it can generate for you not only the offering memorandum for the next 3 to 5 year projections, but looking at if you gave it best case scenario, and then you also looked at what happens if the interest rate were to drop 3 or 4%, just hypothetically. You can even get projections off of that to the point where it's almost, you can't really predict that when you're actually doing it manually, but having AI create that information for you is actually eye-opening. So you can actually take information utilizing AI, and you could ask it so many different questions that you'll have more scenarios that you can actually think of. That'll be valuable for not only you, but it'll also be valuable for your clients as well, because you've thought about all these different scenarios that they have probably never thought of as well. So I think that, again, it's just more things that you can have in your pocket to think outside of the box, and you'll probably be more informed than your client would.
How do you see it playing in with, so I have my own kind of theories on particularly image generation AI systems, but the easy play partner with AI systems is blockchain technology, and any number of things, but blockchain particularly, right? So how do you see those playing together as we move forward?
So blockchain, in terms of its use, I think blockchain will help investors just in terms of if you're looking to be an investor, it'll help you actually create and decentralize a lot of things. One thing that you mentioned was contracts. So I'll use that as an example. Blockchain is basically a transaction that you can utilize to help create or decentralize certain systems, for instance, contracts. If you're looking at the whole, end to end of putting together a contract, talking to the buyer, all the way to close, by utilizing AI and blockchain technology, you can actually streamline a lot of that processes. In a way, it kind of eliminates the intermediary, if you will. For instance, an attorney doesn't really have to draft a lot of this information, because what will happen is it'll take the criteria from a potential buyer, and if the criteria and the data sets meets what AI has actually gathered at the beginning from a buyer, it can craft that contract to the correct terms that is negotiated up front, and they'll be able to look at that in a much quicker fashion, be able to determine if that fits their criteria, and they'll be able to close the property on a much quicker time frame. So I think one thing is that accuracy, timeliness is going to be a big factor in terms of utilizing blockchain technology, and it'll help reduce not only time and cost, but it'll also help eliminate things like fraud. And that was one thing that I wanted to bring up too as well. By utilizing blockchain technology, one of the things that you are going to take into consideration is going to be the data privacy and integrity of people's information. And by utilizing AI, especially if you have a back-end system, like for instance, a company that utilizes, they're very heavy centric on AI technology, want to make sure that they're protecting the customer's data set and their information accordingly. Because if they can do that, then a lot of the private information that is held in that system will be protected a lot better, meaning encryption, making sure that the anonymity and all that information is protected. So in a sense, it'll give more reassurance to your clients, at the end.
Yeah, the blockchain side of things, I think, is going to be one of the big drivers to the functionality of AI, because you're creating that transaction record and it becomes an individualized transaction. And then that's where you are protected from fraud situations, where this is a legit registry, moves along, and now it's tracked, and it's the technology is, again, just databases, but it's updating all of database, there's several databases being updated at the same time to where it becomes unforgeable, right? To where that's the whole thing. And when we're talking about contracts, you can obviously see the value. I said I kind of had my own theory on images. I remember when the deep fakes started coming out, right? Where you put Tom Cruise on somebody's face and it would oh my God, that's kind of creepy. It wouldn't look like, it wouldn't totally fool you, but you could see where it was headed. And then AI systems started coming out, and now we've got the Adobe systems. You've got Dolly. You've got Midjourney. You've got all these wonderful systems that have come out, and all of a sudden, by just typing something, you get Donald Trump and Joe Biden dancing together in the woods, and you can't tell that it's not real. And so we're moving into an age where Joe Citizen is not going to be able to decipher between what is real and what is not, which is a scary place to be. Enter blockchain. I think blockchain encryption is going to be one of the only things that we have going for us to be able to track whether an image is real. That the realness of actual visual data, I think, is going to come to play here. It has to very quickly, or you're going to start seeing, video evidence is no longer going to be admissible in court, or audio evidence, right? Because you can just plug your voice into a thing and make a song, and that's cool. But if you can't tell that it's real, then you've got to have a way to validate that. And I think blockchain is going to play an enormous role in that sort of validation area as we move forward. Wanted to ask you about the ethics of using AI systems. The obvious point is AI helps us cheat. So how do you see the ethics or morality of AI playing out in a business atmosphere or real estate atmosphere?
Yeah, and that's a big thing too. Not only, in the professional environment, but just in general, right, in the population. I think one thing is that it's got to be regulated. There's going to be standards out there. If you're familiar with GDPR, which is the General Data Protection Regulation, and the CCPA, which is the California Consumer Protection Act, all of these are different regulations that deals with data privacy and integrity. And I think one thing that we need to take into consideration is the ethics part of it. Yes, you're right. You're looking at different images and things that are happening on the internet right now, which is a scary thought because that can actually be utilized against you, right? So taking that information and taking it as if, is it real? Is it fake? And how can you prove that? And I think all of this comes down to ethics. One thing that's happening right now, and I know that the government is trying to find ways into how to deal with this because there's so much information that's being flooded right now in the internet, in companies. Everybody's got their own versions of different AI technologies. And I think time will eventually come, hopefully, that we'll be able to regulate a lot of the privacy information and the way that AI is being used right now in the current state. I think one of the important things that we need to do is just making sure as agents is to make sure that the integrity and how we're using AI is what we're intending it to be. And then also making sure that we're in compliance. If there are legal issues or there are legal frameworks that are going to be put in place, that we just continue to follow that in an ethical manner. I mean, it's very easy to really transpose a lot of the information and use it in a bad way. But at the same time, if you've got good ethics and you want to comply to the standards, and I'm sure NRA and different parts of the real estate organizations are probably going to be more stringent, as we continue on in this path with technology.
Yeah. So what do you use? I mean, like you told us a few of the tools, but or I guess a better question would be, what do you recommend for a realtor right now that they could use today that they could start making a difference in sort of their day-to-day activities?
Absolutely. Some of the things that I've been playing around with and have been utilizing are some of these AI tools. One is called Boomtown, and that's a lead generation system that allows you to utilize a marketing platform to allow you to create leads, making sure that you could reach out to a certain demographic based off of the criteria that you want to target. That's one that I'm utilizing and playing around with as well. House Canary, as I mentioned earlier, is the property valuation report. So not only can that take current state of what property valuations look like, but it could also take a future projection of what that would look like too as well, which is a really interesting tool. Another one is called AdWorks. That's an automated marketing system that you could utilize as well. And that automated marketing is something to where you can craft emails to a certain demographic. So you don't have to literally create a template or use MailChimp, but you can actually even tailor it to a specific segment, to a specific person. And you don't have to sit there and type it all out. You just give it a prompt. And if it fits the prompt, basically the information that AI will generate for you. For instance, you type in, just certain keywords like, this email is to Tom Ford, and I would like to just follow up on his property at 1234 Lake Sammamish Highway and to see if he's looking to sell his property within the next couple of weeks. You give that sort of the initial prompt, and then you can feed data into it in terms of more details through the MLS, if you will, about his property. And then you go ahead and hit the enter button, and it will give you basically the output of what it is that you're trying to develop and craft in an email. If it fits the criteria, because it usually is pretty incredible in terms of the output of information that it can generate for you. If it fits your criteria, great, you could go ahead and send that. Whereas if you were to create it, by yourself or utilizing MailChimp, that could take you a few minutes. This is literally, in an instant. You could tweak it to your liking if there's little things that you want to do, but for the most part, it generates that. You could also do batch emails too as well through this, and you can create it to where it could be tailored to specific people, individuals, or demographics. So that's one way that you could utilize AdWords in that sense. Another one is Matterport. We utilize that here in National Land. So Matterport is one tool that we're utilizing that provides virtual tours. And I think that's a great one for people that aren't physically in a location of where the property is located or where it's situated. And it works well for people that are not geographically close to the area, and even for international folks too. So they could literally look at a piece of property, give it a 3D angle as if you're actually taking a look at it from a drone perspective, or even, in a much closer view, if you will. Another one is Roof AI is a cool tool. It's a AI-driven chatbot that allows for more client engagement. So if you set up an AI chatbot, again, you can create this on your own, giving it different prompts in terms of what you think you would like to ask a client, or if a client reaches out to you. Or you can actually go and research companies that actually do have different chatbots that they've already pre-created for you as a realtor. So you could go ahead and do that. And it works 24/7. So it's not something to where you have to be within an office hour setting of 8 to 5. This can be 24 hours a day, and you don't even have to reply. You could set it up to where this chatbot can answer for you if you'd like to do that. So those are some of the tool sets, AI tools that I've been playing around with, and I think could be useful for agents that are out there if they wanted to get their feet wet and play around with some tools that they could find useful.
I was going to throw in there too for, and this is one sort of like under the table because you probably don't think about it being an AI system, but anybody who starts utilizing Facebook ads, right? The Facebook system, everybody I know has had the experience of where they're talking about something with somebody and they log into Facebook and there's an ad for it. Well, what's going on is you've typed in a search, right? Like you look for it on Google. It happened the other day with baseball equipment. I was looking for something for my son, and I just typed in a search for a certain type of practice ball. And before I know it, like I log into Facebook a little bit later and here's an ad for baseball practice stuff. And I'm talking to my wife like, oh, this is creepy. But then at the same time, I'm like, this is marketing. Like this, I do this. This is part of my job. I set these things up. But when it happens to you, it's a totally different feeling. But that's an AI system. My other favorite AI system on the planet is Netflix. The algorithms that they have in there are amazing because you can pick one show that you like and you'll get a million recommendations that you go through the recommendations and just the feeling is, yep, y'all like that. Oh, I'll watch that one too. The recommendations they give you based off of what you watch are pretty phenomenal. And those are all AI systems. They're really rudimentary and they're not going to help you in real estate. But, well, Facebook ads will. But Netflix will not, unless maybe you're getting information from HGTV or something like that on those shows. But those are all just different little systems to utilize. The chatbot systems are great, depending on the ones you find. And I'm glad that you found a good one because there's varying degrees of success on chatbots, right? You don't want to be on some site asking about a house and they're recommending shoes to you or something or saying they can't do it. Like that's always frustrating. So given all this, kind of back to the very beginning of the conversation, when AI first started coming out, the hyperbole was it's coming for our jobs. And I think there are several jobs that I would say are under threat. Service industry jobs in particular, there's definite accounting, watch out. Things like that where it involves number crunching, watch out. You are going to be likely more of a user of AI rather than running the infrastructure of a financial deal, stuff like that in the near future. But real estate in particular, how do you see that playing out with AI?
Yeah, with AI, I think a lot of the stuff that AI can be utilized for real estate will be a lot of the repetitive tasks, meaning reaching out to clients, being able to craft emails and do follow-ups. I think those things can be utilized through AI. The predictive analytics stuff that we just talked about earlier through House Canary and being able to put reports and data together, I think can actually be utilized through AI as well. So efficiency in that respect will free up more time for you as an agent to be more human and provide that humanistic approach that I think will never go away. for agents is to be able to continue that rapport building, being able to talk to your clients, and to be able to understand, what their needs are. I think by doing that and having the AI create the back end stuff that you need to do will be very complementary, I think. And I see that already. And I can only foresee that to be even better, down the future with all the new technologies and things that we probably haven't even thought about yet. But at least from my perspective and from what I've gathered out here so far, from my experience, I think that it's going to be complementary in that respect.
Yeah, I think a lot of the consensus out there, and I tend to agree, is that majority of us will experience the influence of AI, but it's more of an enhancement of what we are. Like I brought up finance, right? Like I do think accounting, the function of accounting is going to be under threat here within 5 years. And it's going to be more of, because AI can't make human decisions or have human intuitiveness or human collaboration, they still need a user and someone to sort of be the maestro. But instead of let's take that analogy, and instead of the person being the maestro and the orchestra, you've got an orchestra and the person just gets to be the maestro and kind of direct the orchestra on what it's doing. And I think it will be a huge enhancement for those things. Real estate in particular, right? Like there's a sense of it where, a person could come in, utilize an AI system. It could do all the scouting for you, find the property, give you a valuation of it, set you up with a contract, and off you go without a human interaction. But an AI system isn't going to know to sit down with a person and ask them, well, what are you thinking, where the types of places you want to live, and, what are the colors of houses? And then, oh, you say you like Greek architecture. Well, have you considered this area that also has that? And being able to ask those sort of softer questions to guide the client, that experience, I don't see that being replaced by a machine anytime in the near future. But it's like behind the scenes, the agents are going to have all these enhancements to their ability set to where they can create contracts, run numbers, give more accurate valuations and projections, right? When those kind of systems and being able to use those, I think is just going to be, like I said, an enhancement. It's going to, what do you call it? The singularity, right? The merger between man and machine, is getting closer and closer. But yeah, I see a more of that kind of a scenario. I don't see it totally replacing most professions. There's got to be a user at the other end.
Exactly. I mean, mind you, it will eliminate a lot of jobs, which we're already seeing in the industry, I'm sure. But at the same time, for every 2 or 3 jobs that eliminates, it actually will create 1 or 2 jobs. Not to say that it's going to be a 1-for-1, but it's not going to totally eliminate everybody's job. It'll always create new opportunities or enhance current opportunities. But it will eliminate a lot of the tasks that can be done through AI, which is, again, the ones that are either lower level or something that they can streamline into a better process.
The one that really got me is I feel like a lot of the, there's a lot of service industry. There's a lot of like data entry jobs that everybody were kind of looking at. And then you could see, like, when AI started taking over, you could see software developers going, oh, I'm set. I get to create AI systems now. And then the first time I saw that, I think it was GPT, that you can type in code and it will spit it out for you. And it's like, oh, you guys are in trouble too. I felt like there was equality among the workforce that we were finally looking at. Like, oh, okay, everybody's kind of like got to watch out what they're doing because this thing makes code now too. That'll be very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, things can change though too, but that, at least from what I see, I think if you've got some understanding of AI and can utilize it to your advantage, it can only help you, I think. Hopefully not eliminate all of our jobs, but at least from what I see.
Got my fingers crossed.
Yeah.
I had that. It was the week that ChatGPT hit. I had a meeting with my team and I got my team using it within that week. And I remember sitting down with them and saying, this thing's not coming for your job. Some are, but if you don't learn how to use it right now, it's going to remove your job, because if you can't use it, you're going to become obsolete. It's It's going to be that powerful that if you are not an active user, you're going to become obsolete, by proxy of that. And my team adopted it really quick, and I'm proud of them for doing that. But it's like there's also the hyperbole side where, oh, it's kind of taking everybody's job, and then it's kind of started tapering a little bit as far as what it's doing, and we're going to start seeing really big advancements in it, but it's not going to be as loud. Like when it first came out, it was just bonkers. Everybody was glommed onto it. Chat GPT is going to start writing our newspapers, and before we realized it, you can tell a Chat GPT article because it uses words that you and I would never use. It's like very flowery language and stuff like, and it's going to clean all that up here probably within a couple of years. But the systems still need a human operator. There still has to be that human touch. It's still just a database, but it's accelerating. It's a little spooky, but it's good. It's definitely an enhancement to what we're doing. So I wanted to ask you just like, a few takeaways on this. Give us your list of software for realtors that every realtor needs to check out like immediately.
Yes, I think the ones that they need to check out immediately, some come to mind here, is definitely look at Boomtown. It's a lead generation, and SmartZip, which is a CRM tool. It's basically a real estate tool that you could utilize that I think is going to be pretty robust. So take a look at Boomtown for one for lead generation and SmartZip for our CRM. Another one to take a look at again, as I mentioned, Roof AI. That's a chat bot that'll help kind of nurture your leads. I think that if you utilize that could probably be something that you could use, pretty much right now. And you could start setting that up. You can create your own little questions and give it some prompt engineering in terms of what you want it to say and reply. Another one, as I mentioned, you've heard about House Canary. And then AdWorks and Rex, these are like automated marketing tools that you could probably start utilizing right now. So like I mentioned, tailored emails to clients, ads, and just making sure that you can communicate to, easily with them with that. For the most part, some things that are out there right now that's happening that you're probably seeing is Reonomy. If you've heard of Reonomy and Zillow's Zestimate, they're already using AI technology there already. So in terms of being able to pull information and extract like property details, if you're not too savvy in pulling any type of data, like snapshot wise, current state or future state, you could always go to Reonomy and Zillow's Zestimate. They have pretty good predictive analytics, and they have things that they can actually use within their tool set that they can forecast the predictability of where the market is right now. So I would suggest looking at Reonomy and Zillow's Zestimate because they're probably right now at the forefront of using a lot of these predictive analytics. CoStar and BuildFax is another one too that I would probably, for you as an end user or consumer, to look at, because they can actually assist with not only risk management, but also to help flag properties in terms of where they're at as far as higher risk or any type of issues structurally. So CoStar is one that we all know of, I'm sure. BuildFax is the one that I was going to suggest in terms of an AI tool that you can use to help utilize any risks that could crop up for a particular property that you might not perceive, but maybe BuildFax can. So I would use that as a risk management tool. And other than that, I think I mentioned Roof AI and Matterport, if you're using that already. And Landtour 360, which what we have here at National Land Realty actually falls within that category of artificial intelligence and augmented reality. So I would say right there would be a good start.
We talked about, I was totally going to do the shameless plug, and honestly, the conversation just deviated out of it. But we talked about Matterport, and that is the one thing that Landtour 360 has been sort of a game changer for our company because we created it, and I want to do the shameless plug, and I'm a marketer, so that's what I'm going to do. But it's a Matterport tour, but just from the sky. And we're able to three-dimensionally plot different location markers on there, and then you can zoom in and out of the scenery. Like you can be in the sky, and then you can zoom down onto the ground and watch a video, and you can zoom back out, and you can tour the property and spin around and stuff. And it gives you a true lay of the land in a way that no picture is ever going to do. And when you're talking about land, that's really what you want to know is what's that topo look like? You know, what's it look like from the sky? And that's our shameless plug. I do want to hit you with one last question.
Sure.
What are you most excited about with the future of AI? And then we'll limit you here because I mean, you know, I'm most excited about ninja cars that drive themselves over mountains by themselves, but that doesn't have anything to do with real estate, right? So like, what are you most excited about with real estate?
With real estate, to me, is there's just a lot of opportunity. It opens up a lot more opportunities now, just in terms of what we're able to provide our clients. A lot of it was, again, a lot of manual work and being able to find information based off of the MLS or data that has been stored somewhere. But now with the use of AI, you can actually do a lot of things with it. I'm just excited in the fact that I'll probably have more information to provide a client than I did before, because you always want to be prepared and always give them that thought of, oh, I'd never thought about that. Well, this just makes you that much more experienced. It just makes you stand out maybe from another agent that is not using AI to its capabilities. So I think that in that sense, if you can utilize it and understand it well, it can actually set you apart from the other agents that are out there that are not using it or just opposed to it. I think it can only enhance you. And I think that if you don't even try to understand it or utilize some of, even a little bit of its capabilities, it can actually be to your detriment. So to me, I'm just excited about it. Again, because of my technology background and real estate, I just see that there's a lot of things that you could do with it.
Agreed. Thank you, man. And actually, I want to retract my thing about cars that will drive themselves over mountains. No, the piece of AI that I'm most excited about, because I know it's going to get created. It is going to get created within the next couple of years. Somebody's going to make a system where you can take any movie and plug in a different actor. And I want to see things like Gladiator with Charlie Chaplin, something like that. It's going to happen, and it's going to happen.
It will. I totally agree. I mean, they're already doing that with, I mean, you've seen the memes that are happening right now. You probably saw our presidents, dancing and everything like that and putting them together. It's incredible. And it almost looks too real.
It's exactly that.
I totally agree.
Like I said, it's gonna be the movie Gladiator. You're gonna have somebody fighting in like Roman combat, but he's gonna be jumping around like the boxing scene in Charlie Chaplin. It's gonna that's gonna be so exciting. No, that's sorry. I don't want to take away from the conversation. I can do that. But anyway, no. Thank you very much. How can people get a hold of you? And like say if they want to talk AI with you or just talk real estate in Washington, particularly you've been tell everybody what you specialize in. Tell them how to reach you.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can reach me at my email. You can just reach me out here at National Land Realty. You can also hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active there. And also through our National Land Realty website. So either of those avenues, you could reach me very well. And also you can call me at 206-661-1330. Text me, call me. I'll try to reply back to you as soon as I can. And also, if you wanted to just chat and talk, my specialization basically is, of course, land is my bread and butter. But also, I have a background in multifamily. I also can help you with development or development information. I've done everything from end to end, from pre-development, development, all the way to release or basically end of construction. I can help you with any of those aspects. In terms of AI, just reach out to me. I'd be happy to talk to you, see how I can help you in any way. Anything that we've discussed here today, I'd be happy to kind of dive more in depth with you. Maybe even help create some type of memorandum for you or a brochure if you'd like to create something for your properties. I'd be happy to talk to you in any of those avenues. So hopefully that would be the best way to get a hold of me, and just give me a call whenever.
Excellent. Ernest, always pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mac. It's a pleasure. It was great. Thank you so much.
This concludes episode 107 for the National Land Realty Podcast, discussing artificial intelligence in land real estate with Washington-based real estate agent Ernest Peralta. You can learn more about land ownership and the buying and selling of land at nationalland.com.